Welcome to Podcast Recovery. We are your hosts, David O.
and Eric V.
Podcast Recovery is a forerunner in digitally accessible addiction recovery support. We provide ease and convenience to any and all seeking a message of recovery and hope. By broadcasting the stories of recovering addicts, we act as a complement to all other recovery services. We exist to create a global foundation platform so that any addict may hear a message of recovery, strength, and hope. We contribute education and awareness by highlighting the diversity in the lives of recovering addicts to show that one addict helping another truly works. Today we are joined by our special guest, Martin. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing all right.
Doing well, good. Where are you from, Martin?
I am from the Maryland area. Grew up in Laurel and a little bit in Florida and moved around a lot.
Where in Florida?
I lived down in Deltona, Central Florida for a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you an army kid or a gypsy?
No, just we moved.
Gypsy. Okay.
Yeah.
When were you first introduced to recovery?
So my first introduction to recovery was when I went to the psych ward the first time, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I did not take the recommendations at that time.
Yeah.
But that was like my first time really hearing about it and hearing, personal experiences about it. And then it wasn't until I actually went to rehab that I was actually like read the steps and, other than hearing about,
Generalized recovery.
yeah. But I didn't really know anything about it. I probably knew more about Fight Club than I did about any kind of...
We don't talk about
We don't
Fight
talk about Fight Club. Rule number one. And what year was that?
So that would have been 2010?
Goodness. We're getting
2009?
We're getting long in the tooth. And how long have you been clean?
I have been clean for 5 years now.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, just
Congratulations.
Cool.
Yeah.
And with all that out of the way, we are going to turn it over to you to share your experience, strength, and hope. So the floor is yours.
Okay. Grateful to be here, guys.
Grateful to have you.
Yeah, my life is very different today from what it used to be. When I'm asked to...
I would hope so.
Yeah.
5 years? Yeah.
I'm telling you. I mean, drastically different. When they say it gets greater later, they're not joking.
Nice.
A life beyond my wildest dreams is definitely where I'm at today. And the other day, actually, it dawned on me that I have actually become the guy that I dreamed about being. When I would sit in my room in depression while using, I had this sort of idea of who I would like to be if I didn't hate myself so much.
Yeah.
And it's a very close picture to who I actually am today. I got there by staying clean, by taking the suggestions that were given. I got here today really just by, easy does it. Trying not to overcomplicate the process. When I did get into a rehab and I did get introduced into the program, they basically told me to try to compare in and not out, to try to see the similarities and not the differences. And, I felt very different. When you're coming in and you've been using and you've been isolated for years and years on end, and you are filled with nothing but self-loathing and regret. And, I'd lost everything at that point in my life, excuse me, and was ready to, end my life because I didn't have a way out. So when I got into the rehab and they said, here's how it worked for other people. And if you do this, you can actually learn to love yourself, lose the desire to use, and learn a new way of life. And that to me is as overwhelming as it felt at the time. I had reached a level of surrender where I was ready for a change. I was ready for something different because my way had not worked for so many years. Like I desperately wanted to stop using. I remember 2008 as a milestone in my using, as like a deeper bottom than I'd hit in the past. And I started actually telling myself that I had a problem. Not that I was, really telling anybody else.
Yeah.
And then it was almost like because I had admitted to myself that I had a problem, my using got worse.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I made it into a recovery environment or was honest enough with other people to get help, they laid out a plan.
Yeah.
And I had reached a level of desperation and knowing that I couldn't do it on my own, that I was ready to just try. And that for me was the open-mindedness, the willingness, and the honesty that we talk about. Now, I didn't know that I was working, some steps. I was actually working, really through step 1, 2, and 3 before I made it into rehab. But in essence, I was.
Yeah.
And that was the change in my life, that willingness to surrender and be honest about where I was at, showed me that there was a change of heart. And that to me, like recovery to me is really a lot about change.
Oh, yeah.
All of life is change, right? I mean, the only constant in life is change. And so when I sort of accepted that I could change or that I was open to it, something happened. And really, like when you change in an instant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you really make that commitment to recovery, not like to staying clean or, trying to just be dry. When you make a real commitment to recovery, something changes in you in that instant.
Yeah.
And that was where I was at. And that's really where, I saw the 12 steps on the wall and I read them and I was like, well, shit, I guess if I'm doing this, I can finish this in less than 28 days and I'll be out of here and I'll be good to go. It's, there's a little more to it than that, thankfully.
Yeah.
But that was where I made the shift. And,
how long had you been using by that point?
So probably, well, I didn't actually use like a lot of people like before high school and, through a lot of high school, I was actually, straight edge. I would call myself straight edge. I was like a punk rock kid who, I didn't drink. I didn't hang out with, I would hang out with people that smoked and drank, but like that wasn't me. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't do that. At 17, I moved out and shortly thereafter, when I was, after graduation, I started drinking it very quickly, got out of control and escalated and, progressed from there. So probably, I guess like 13, 14 years, something like that.
What was your first drink?
Mike's Hard Lemonade.
Mike's Hard. Oh, that was mine too. Mike's Hard and Smirnoff Ice.
He had really good advertisements. I think that's probably what got me.
They really sold it to kids.
Yeah.
They really did. Yep. They were like, oh, it tastes like delicious lemonade.
Yep. And from there went right to Jack and Ginger. And
okay, that's gross.
Good.
That's gross.
Yeah.
I approve of that much more than Mike's Hard.
Hey, I was young.
Yeah, I was really I was never like a one track type of user. From every alcohol to, every strain of weed to every single opiate I could get my hands on, including ordering poppies on eBay.
Dope.
Do I want to go into detail like that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I found out at one point that you could get poppies on eBay, and I was fucked up enough at that point that I'm like, I don't really care if they get my address. I don't really, you know what I mean? Like I was like, what the fuck ever, because I didn't have a consistent source, at that point in time. And sure as shit, ordered it up on eBay and I got this box and they weren't even wrapped in plastic. Like literally somebody just dumped this shit in a box and mailed it.
Oh my God.
And they were rattling around and they were dried. And so I separated the seeds from the plant material. I ground up the plant material, ground up the seeds, and I made teas out of them basically. And out of the me and the 4 people that I got to try them, everybody got horrendously sick, vomited everywhere. And I thought they tasted bad, but it was a good high. It was strong.
Jesus Christ.
And anyway, I was that kind of addict where, for me it was
Sure, I'll try this.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I don't even need to know what it is. If you want me to try it, or if you've got some, I won't even ask. And for a while there, that's really how I got introduced into heroin to begin with, was because I had a girlfriend who liked that I would use with her and was really, really good at being deceptive and manipulative. And she would go and get it. And then, when I remember one time, and I was ignorant, you know what I mean? I was just like, let's get high and then fuck, because that's, what we did.
Yeah.
And I said, this is really brown. What is this? And I remember she mentioned a couple things that she knew I was okay with using, like morphine and this and that. And, it's a mix. It's a mix is what she told me. And
it's a Jeffrey.
It's a Jeffrey. It's no problem.
Jeffrey.
And,
nobody's afraid of Jeffrey. He's just a bloke down the street.
And that's kind of how I got eased into it. And that's really how, most of us get into using is, we get shown by other people, we
got shown by Mike and his hard lemonade.
Yeah. Yeah. We get eased into, how to use a bong. Somebody shows you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do I make a pipe out of tinfoil when I don't have anything else? Somebody shows me, and I treat my recovery the same way, where, I don't know how to recover, but I know there's a lot of people out there that do. Mm-hmm. And, I just, I have to be humble enough to ask. And that was really tough for me. In my upbringing, we didn't share problems. We didn't share about how we were feeling. We didn't deal with emotions. We didn't go into any of that kind of stuff. If you had a problem or you were hurting inside, you kept it to yourself. Mm-hmm. If it was something that was going on, like, we went through a divorce in our family when we were young. Mm-hmm. And when we were going through that, we were told that's a family secret. You don't share about that. You don't talk about that with anybody else.
Oh. How 1950s.
Yeah. And if problems got bad enough, you just moved to another state, hence us being in Florida and moving around.
Nice.
That was the solution for things. And, a lot of that stuff, when I really go back and look at it, and having done, I say go back and look at it, but really, working a 12-step program with a sponsor, you are in a safe environment to start to take a deeper look at why do I do the things that I do, right? The drugs being a symptom of a deeper disease. That's really what we're trying to get to in recovery, and in a safe way. We're not just trying to, stop using and think that we're better and
start ripping off Band-Aids.
Exactly. Cut into a deep wound. And a lot of this stuff that, we discover through the step work, you walk away from a session with a sponsor with a feeling of euphoria, because pain lessened is pain, or pain shared is pain lessened. Mm-hmm. Right? Am I saying that right?
Yes.
So, for me, being able to dig a little bit deeper into some of my issues of the past, for me, a lot of it came from abandonment. It came from being raised without a father. Yeah. It came from, having feelings that I couldn't deal with, being a herd animal with no herd, or a pack animal with no pack. Yeah. I was very isolated growing up, and I didn't know how to interact with other children, having moved around from Maryland to Florida. And Florida.
Were you an only child?
No, I had a sister. Okay. And what's crazy, speaking of her, we still have not mended our relationship. We actually haven't spoken in years and years and years. Even before my using got really bad, she kind of, cut me off. Yeah. And there's a lot of deeper family drama that I can't even begin to get into, that also led into my using near the end as well. But, I discovered, for me, the reason why a lot of people say I'm grateful to be an addict, because I used to think that was crazy. Like when I got into it, like, why the fuck would you be grateful? This is like a curse. I have to live with this forever now. You're crazy. Why are you grateful for this? And for me, I came to an understanding with that because of my sister, because, she deals with the same kind of inner demons that I did, having been, raised in a similar environment. Yeah. But she didn't act out as deeply or in the same way that I did. Mm-hmm. So for me, it became glaringly obvious because of the using. And I was lucky enough to get into the rooms and get help. And, you know, I was desperate enough. I was beaten down enough to admit that there was a problem because of the using. If I hadn't have been an addict, then I might just still be, you know, just kind of bad enough. And you know, that is such a curse to, that I never want to wish on anybody. You know, I'm so grateful the fact that it got bad enough for me to want to change and to become this person that I feel like I was, you know, really meant to be, or even not that even that I'm really who I'm meant to be, as much as like I get the opportunity to try to figure that out. You know, I feel like a lot of work that we do in recovery is like just trying to get to the core of who we really are meant to be, or who we can be. You know, not now that I haven't used for 5 years, like I don't care if other people do. I don't look down on other people that use, because for me, you know, good on you. You know, if you can use successfully, I couldn't. But I don't look down on people that use.
No.
I totally lost my train of thought where I was going with that.
Now that you've been clean for 5 years.
I don't mind being around it. I totally
you.
lost where I was going with that.
I don't know.
There you go. I digressed too far.
Well, like, tell us more about like how the using progressed, like through the years. Like,
I mean, you know,
how do you get from Mike's Hard to heroin?
Yeah. Slowly. I mean, I felt like I had really good control over it. And for me, because I was using so many different substances, I never felt like I wasn't in control until it was too late, I guess. Like if I smoked crack, I wasn't a crackhead because I didn't only smoke crack. You know, if I was snorting heroin for, you know, months on end, I wasn't a heroin addict because I could stop and start, you know, taking Lyrica or Suboxone and then just move back to alcohol alone. And it never felt like, you know, the pinwheel of drugs that I was trapped in using was really addiction, you know. And I guess it just happened little by little because for me, like being able to cope with social anxiety and cope with the feelings of depression, you know, self-medicating to try to get out of bed every day, worked for a long time with self-medicating. It worked a long time by using. And at a certain point, after it had gone too far, it's almost like, you know, if you lie about something and then you got to lie to cover up that lie, and then you got to lie to cover up that lie, or you forget who you're lying to, so you stop talking to that person, and then that builds on something else, and then, you know, you get caught by it and you're two-faced, and then fuck that guy, he's lying about me lying. And those things really happen in a natural progression where they just build on each other. If you're not doing the next right thing, then you don't know where you're going to end up. You know, if you're you know what I mean? Like the progression is so natural in its build. And I went from drinking too much to drinking and using anything and everything I could find to, you know, basically once I got pills and opiates, it was kind of like it was all over.
Yeah, it's a wrap at that point.
And that was probably where around 2008 I was. And I had shortly thereafter lost the girlfriend of my dreams. It was just me and my dog. I was getting behind on bills. I couldn't really consistently work. And I just didn't know, you know what I mean? I didn't know if I was going to show up the next day or not. Anytime, I mean that, and I hate to say it, but like, these are kind of like vague memories now, you know, 5 years is a long time. I don't talk a lot about the using stories other than when I'm trying to share. I don't really like, I guarantee you the people that all disown me that I used to hang out with while I'm using, I'm sure they can tell you crazy fucking stories. Like they told me one time, After 2 years, they let me know about the alter ego that came out when I was blacked out. Donnie Pilferson. He named himself. Now, I was not aware of Donnie Pilferson, but they were saying like, oh, Donnie came out again last night. I'm like, who the fuck cares? Who's this Donnie guy?
Yeah.
You know? And come to find out, once I would black out, I would call myself. I would speak with this sort of hey there, coppa, who's coming for you now? You know, and he had like this whole bit that he did in my blacked out
You sound
body.
like an amazing person to hang out with. You're fucked up.
Yeah, I was way out there,
Donnie
out there.
Pilferson.
Donnie Pilferson. And you know, they told me about it, and you know, I was always feeling like somebody was trying to sabotage me when I was using, like. My stuff that was really important would get thrown away, or, you know, I would actually end up with more stuff in my pockets the next morning, or, you know what I mean? I felt like I was being sabotaged, and really, you know, it was Donnie. It was Donnie all along.
It was Donnie all along.
To give you some more perspective on how out there I was, when I was living, I had this little house next to a power plant next to McDaniel College up in Westminster. And the whole house would shake. And I lived there for a long time by myself with my dog Mohawk, who I give full credit for keeping me alive during this period, and my mannequin, Manny. And Manny was a mannequin who had no legs, or has no legs. I shouldn't say it like he's not around anymore. Manny's still alive and well. He doesn't talk to me like he used to, but he still lives at my house. But he used to live at a tattoo shop, and he is covered in tattoos. And it's funny how, like, in my brain, Manny is not the same as he used to be. So when I lived alone with Mohawk and Manny, those were the two people that I would talk to.
Yeah.
And that's who would talk to me, my dog and my mannequin.
He was your Wilson.
Yeah.
He was my Wilson.
Yeah, for real.
For the record, I have met Manny.
Yeah,
I have met Manny. He does exist. This is not a bit. This is 100%.
No, yeah, Manny was my support team. You know, when I was crying and you know, staying up for days on end, you know, that was who was there for me. And you know, when I say that Mohawk is the reason that I'm alive today, you know, when I was at that point in my life, I didn't have any connected relationships, right? Like I had my drug dealer, and I had a couple of people that were like sort of in my life, but they didn't know who I was. Like they didn't know where I was at. If I would put on a happy face and go and see somebody, then, you know, they would see what I wanted to project in them. They would see the ego that kind of I could stand upright to push out the door for long enough before I had to, you know, use again or whatever. And, you know, Mohawk though, he needed to eat. You know, I didn't really care if I ate, you know what I mean? But he needed to eat. And I didn't want to go outside, but he needed to go outside. And that was sort of like my connection to life. Really, that's what sustained me. My love for him is really what sustained me for a lot of years and kept me going. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's crazy stories like waking up at a crack house that I don't remember going to and having my car been gone. And I gave the keys to the guy and it coming back eventually after the cops have been there and back. And, you know, the mirror being ripped off and the tire blown out. And, you know, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens when you're in active addiction. And for the most part, so much of it just blends together because it was just like a day in and day out. And when, you know, I was in these modes where I would be like, I can't live like this anymore. Right. That's what I used to tell myself. I can't live like this anymore. I didn't know there was a way out. I didn't know there was an answer. I didn't know how to ask for help.
Absolutely.
But I would say, I can't live like this anymore. And in those times, like sometimes I would abstain from using for a couple days. And really within even just a couple days, like I would start to feel better. Like I could do this. And then it'd be like, in the back of my head, be like, cool. Well, let's just get the bag of that. And then it'll be even better. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it was like that cycle that I could never, ever get out of. Yeah. And I think for me, rehab did a lot to just break that cycle. You know, when you're in these patterns of behavior, whether it's using or anger or, you know, whatever way it's acting out, to break a pattern of behavior that's so deep inside you, the years of not being able to ask for help or be honest about what's going on with me, that's still a pattern of behavior that I have to consciously break because that was my entire life. And I think that's, a lot of the challenge with sticking and staying, like getting into recovery and adopting all 12 all the time into your life. And there is like this deeper level to the steps where, there's like the surface level of working the step work. And then there's almost like this attitude that, when you really like find the people who are living the program in their life, that there's like this attitude of recovery, of attitude of gratitude, a humbleness, a forgiveness, a level of like love that comes out of these people. That's what I latched on into recovery. Trying to find that. I lost my train of thought again too.
The attitude of recovery, the attitude of gratitude.
Yeah, and the change of behaviors is really difficult early on in recovery, and being able to accept change, break those patterns of behavior. That's really the challenge in early recovery is being willing to sit still for long enough, to stay clean long enough to find a new way of life, to being willing. And for me, a lot of that. So I like to give some practical application.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's different for everybody. So, my experience is all that I can share. Like for me, if I come across a problem, I don't want to live in the problem. I want to live in the solution. So for me, I will actively pursue like trying to do something about my life. Now, the story I was just telling you about myself, which was I can't live like this anymore. My solution was to kill myself. Because I didn't ask for help. I didn't know a better way. So that was my solution at that point. And today, I'm able to ask for help. I'm able to be fearless in a way about going about things. So today, being able to walk through life with my heart open, being able to share with people, being able to be willing to adapt and change. It's hard to be able to explain that to a newcomer, except for, that easy does it.
Oh, yeah.
When you're just getting into recovery, especially if you're living on drugs day in and day out, your mind is so far gone, and you got to sit still long enough. You got to be able to put that time in between and not pick up, to be around people in recovery, to go to meeting after meeting, whatever it is. But to go further than that, with the behavior pattern, especially like anger was something that repeatedly came up in my last round with my 4-step. And that anger is a behavior pattern that was part of a reaction. So for me, being able to be willing to sit still long enough to react differently, which really, if you think about that, with comparing that to using, when I get the urge or a thought of using, I have to sit still long enough to put some time in between not reacting to it. Anger is the same way for me. Some people get into spending habits where spending becomes that instant gratification, that feeling of let me out of the way that I'm feeling right now. And I think that's a big part of what dealing with feelings and living life in recovery is about, to keep from using. Once you get clean, which really, after I had a heavy detox. After sweating every night for 2 weeks, I was pretty much off the drugs. After 60 days, my mind started to come back a little more. It really took 6 months, 9 months before I was really thinking more clearly. Yeah. But I felt more like a human being after 60 days. However, I was still me.
Oh, yeah.
I still had all of those same behavior patterns. I still had all of the, desires to use my old tools, which for me is isolation and depression and anxiety, and let me lay in bed rather than deal with real life. So being willing to deal with those feelings and find a new way and ask for help. And, what I mainly did in my recovery early on was, I didn't want to meet anybody. because I have social anxiety, right? But I don't want to die an addict, so I got to go to these meetings.
Yeah.
So I just went to every meeting everywhere. I just went to all different meetings. And I
did not see you going that direction.
Yeah.
Okay. So you go.
Again, I want the solution. I have to deal with what I got. You know what I mean? I got this fucked up being.
Yeah.
But I want better for myself.
Yeah.
So I found like the compromise, and I went to every meeting everywhere. I went down to Montgomery County. I went to Laurel. I went to PG County. I went all the way up to Towson meetings. I just chased recovery all over the place, but in my own quiet way. And what I found is that eventually I found people that I related with. I kind of found people that I felt comfortable with, Brad being one of them.
Oh, yeah.
He was just somebody who was relaxed and open. And, you know, I felt accepted when I got hugged.
Yeah.
You know, I felt different, but somehow the niche that I fell into in the Catonsville area was just different, and it was special. And I wish that for everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. I wish that that willingness to go and chase recovery for everybody, and your family in recovery is there, and they're waiting for you. And, you know, some people can just put their hand up at the first meeting, say, I'm new, help me. And people will.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that at that time. But I'm really grateful that I didn't give up on myself. You know, I took the suggestions that were given to pray for strength. I took the suggestions that were given to never give up, you know, to stick and stay. There's been a number of meetings where lately I've talked about this idea that I don't know if I should even bring this up or not, but for me, relapse is not an acceptable part of my recovery. And I want to clarify that because I don't want to step on anybody's toes or give a mixed message.
Yeah.
So for me, if I felt like I had a reservation that was acceptable, like a big fear of mine is my mom dying. There are certain reservations that I sort of hold in the back of my mind, but I don't have anything that I feel like is a reason to use.
Yeah.
And I want to live a life where there is no reason to use. And we want to welcome everybody back. That is the message of recovery. Keep coming back, without a doubt. And everybody is welcome back. The message that I tell myself is not keep coming back. The message that I tell myself, the mission, is that there's never a reason to use. There is no reason good enough to pick up ever again. And that's kind of where I learned and started to understand the just for today principle. So this idea of just for today, it almost feels like too overwhelming, especially if I say, like I hear myself saying like, I'm never going to use again. Well, that's like, it's like an unrealistic goal in a way, right? To be able to know that you're never going to use again. But what I know is I'm not going to use today.
Yeah.
I'm going to wake up this morning. I'm going to be grateful that I'm clean. I'm going to do whatever I have to do not to pick up, not to put it in me. And if I can get through to tonight, I'm going to be grateful that I didn't use. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And on days when it's my anger and not the drug use, right? It's my acting out or whatever it is. It's the same principle. You know, it's that
I'm not going to punch this guy today.
I'm not going to punch this guy today. I'm going to talk about him and put some space in between it.
I might punch him tomorrow. And we're not going to. No, we're not going to.
No, that's exactly what I do though. Inside my head, I go, no, you're absolutely right. Inside, talking to myself in my head, you're absolutely right. We're going to fucking kill this guy. We're just not going to do it right now. We're going to plan it out. We're going to get him later. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of that random tangent, you ever you're definitely seem like the type of guy who has fights with people in your mind. Like, this person's going to say this, and then I'm going to say that, and then fuck this guy. And then as soon as he says this, that's when I pop him. And after that, I'm going to fucking da-da-da-da. And it's like that just absolute insanity that can just snowball so quickly. And like, that's so much like addict behavior and addict thinking. It's just how fast we can just run with our own diatribe of just shit in our head.
Yeah. And practical application, the way that I've learned to stop most of that is meditation. 100% meditation. For me, meditation has been the reason why I don't get panic attacks checking out in line at the grocery store where I used to get face blindness. I went and spoke at a maximum lockdown prison in Jessup. And, walking in there to, that kind of environment in the past, having to speak in front of people, I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, even being on this right here would be too overwhelming for me. And, through meditation, I go and I practice a place in my mind where I feel peace and freedom. I go and practice deep breathing where I can focus on, the awareness of the awareness, the place that I can go where there's the river of silence. And because I practice that in a safe place in meditation, when I need to go there in normal life, when a situation comes up like that, I know where that calm place is in my mind because I've practiced it. And, that's been a huge tool of recovery for me. Huge.
So you get introduced in 2010, you get clean 2013-ish. 2012, 2013-ish.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah, things got really bad. So after I got out of the psych ward that time, they gave me lots of suggestions. They gave me lithium.
How long were you in?
7 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And they, tried to connect me with an aftercare. But that to me was like, I just need to go back to work. That was my mentality. I just need to go back to work. I'm going to feel better. I'll take this lithium for a little while. And as soon as that stuff that they sent me home with ran out, I was running what we call on self-will again. Yeah. Because I didn't connect with any further help. I went and saw the counselor with the IOP once. And I remember I got a lot out of it. But there was something I just needed to schedule. It was something really simple. I just needed to schedule like one more thing. Yeah. And that felt too overwhelming. Yeah. And it was anything that's easy to do is even easier not to do. Yeah. So I never did it. And I was okay for a little while. You know what I mean? I went on the marijuana maintenance plan shortly thereafter. And, that kind of lasted for, I want to say, almost a year. Actually, it was about a year. And so I had a birthday around the same time as my sister, as well as one of our other friends. And so we went out to Volt in Frederick. Great restaurant. And everybody knew that I wasn't drinking at that time, right? They didn't know I was on the marijuana maintenance plan, but they knew I wasn't drinking. And so to celebrate how well I was doing, I decided to buy everybody drinks. And then they wouldn't mind if I had one. Yeah, here's my manipulation. So I have my celebratory birthday drink, and that was it. It was off to the races again. And I ended up, if you've ever been to Volt in Frederick, there's sort of like a grassy knoll area with trees, and it's like this little peaceful patio area they have. I was pissing in the backyard area, like right out in front of the other people, like just pissing on a tree. I threw a couple chairs over the side. So like I went back to drinking fairly quickly.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah. I mean,
that really got out of hand quick.
Yeah. I missed it. It felt good. You know what I mean? And I didn't know that kind of hold that it had, because I was just having a responsible drink with my friends, but I stayed.
Years. Yeah. 20 years on that one. Responsible
and
drink.
Then I stayed at the bar, and, it didn't end well. So that then, kind of just, wound back into the same, pinwheel of drug use that I've been using. And 2 years after that, it led me back to the same road that I had been in, that I didn't want to live like that. I didn't have a way out. I was ready to kill myself. And, luckily at that point, because I had been to the psych ward before, I knew that there was a connection to help. And what I did differently this time was that I actually told people where I was at and what was going on. I actually, it was one of the harder phone calls I've ever made, but I called my mother and I told my mother that I was going to kill myself, and that I was literally in this, I told her, as much as I could tell her, and she didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to do, but it wasn't really about that. It was more just about me, being honest about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into the psych ward again. And after the 7 days, I started, Like they put me on some medication. I think they put me on Prozac. I started to feel a little bit better. The withdrawal was going through, and that same voice in my head was saying, you just need to go and work harder,
Yeah.
Same way as it used to be, you know what I mean? Like if you just drank on the weekends, or, if you only used at big parties, or if you went to the gym, you used, then you would be a successful, all those voices were coming up again. And there was this girl who was in the psych ward at the same time as me. And there was this guy who, he kind of looked like me, had tattoos. He's kind of like a punk rock guy. And obviously they were in the same place that I was in, but they had a little more experience with the rooms.
Okay.
And so they gave some insight that I'd never had before on what recovery could be, or what it was, and that it worked for other people. It didn't work for them, but it was like, wait, there is something out there.
Yeah.
And because they were there, I actually shared at the little groups that we had in the psych ward. They do they do little, whatever it is, just little activities.
Yeah, group therapy.
Very, very light group therapy, but I would talk like I existed. Yeah. And that was new for me, In high school, I used to be able to skip high school and be marked present because I literally didn't exist. I was so quiet in the back of the room. My teachers didn't know I existed. They would mark me present, and I would skip school altogether. So for me,
that's talented. Wow.
Sharing about,
I should have adopted that practice.
I always felt less than. So to share in the psych ward where, my brain's telling me, well, these people are in more need of help than you are. You don't matter. Whatever it's telling me.
Yeah.
To actually say, here's who I am. This is what I'm doing. This is what's been going on with me, and be honest about it was like a whole new experience for me. And it felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But, it was like being honest. It was like something changed, and that was enough. And because I admitted where I actually was, I got appropriate help.
Aftercare.
And aftercare, I got appropriate suggestions like, oh, maybe this isn't just a mental thing. Maybe you have a drug problem.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe you should do something about your drug problem. Oh.
Yeah.
And so from there,
figure, right?
Yeah. From there, I got into a 28-day rehab, the Massey unit out in Cumberland. I met a guy who was sitting in the front, and he was projecting that attitude that I kind of alluded to, where there's like somebody who's, kind of really trying to live the program, who's trying to work it.
Yeah.
And can I say his name?
Yeah, first name, yeah.
Petros.
Oh, okay.
He was there, and he was there only a couple days before me. And I kind of like the idea of that, because it's sort of like how the programs got started in the first place, like one addict helping another, Bill W. and Dr. Bob, they were only a few days clean, but they made a change in their lives. And that for me was Petros. He was sitting in the front, and he was talking openly about where he was at. He was sharing, he was
Petros
being vulnerable.
Is a loud guy.
Yeah. But it was like, okay, that's the posture to take. I'll do that, and that's really what I kind of echoed through the rest of my recovery was like, okay, here's somebody who's doing it. I'm just going to do that. I don't know where the outcome is going to be. I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I'm just going to do what they say they're going to do. And that to me is like the beauty of the 12 steps, the outline of this program, the pain that all of our predecessors went through to put in writing and give us this, if you do it, it will work.
Yeah.
Period. You can be happy. You can not hate yourself enough to kill yourself. You can stop using.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And that was all I needed was that posture, being humble enough to ask for help, being willing enough to do something about, these suggestions that are given. And I think, I hear about like the Trinity where you have God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And to me, what that's really alluding to is the actions that we take, the consciousness that we have, and the feelings that go with that. And so, like, I have to be aware of the actions that I take. I have to be personally responsible for the actions that I take in my life. I have to acknowledge that I'm a sensitive human being. I have feelings, and I have to address them in a healthy way. And you know, I have to realize that I'm a spiritual being, that I'm, you know, just another, you know, life force on this planet that Creator has put here for whatever reason. And that's part of, you know, the consciousness and making this journey. I can get really fucking spiritual, you know, and that's where I'm at in my life right now. I'm somebody who was completely agnostic and didn't care for, if there was a God, that's the God that I hate. You know what I mean? That's who I was before. And now, you know, I've reached this completely different level of spirituality that I put in my life where, like, for example, Creator God, I don't have to know what it is. And I don't have to define it. Yeah. You know, so there's this very beautiful relationship between me and the Creator where I don't have to define what exactly it is, but I do have to have a relationship with it. I have to connect to it. I have to make a conscious effort to be in line with the laws of nature. And that to me is something that, like, has really changed my life and changed who I am. Like I said, I mean, you know, meditation for me is that key. And, you know, they tell us that we should pray. So I pray. And it's funny because my sponsor,
which we share a sponsor.
Okay. Our sponsor.
Yeah. Our sponsor.
Our sponsor has a great way of saying,
our sponsor, Lord in heaven.
Yes. No. He has a great way of saying, if nobody else is hearing those prayers, you are. And that's kind of my relationship with this God figure, that I don't have to know if God exists or what God is, because when I carry out the actions that people do talk about, I feel the results. I have the results in my life. And that's kind of like, you know, where I'm at right now. And, you know, spirituality changes and will grow over time. So I don't put any restrictions or any resistance on those feelings. And that was something that was really hard for me to begin with. And I think a lot of us have trouble feeling that Creator energy, that universe energy that's out there, right? That unlimited happiness, that true connection to, you know, what if you split an atom causes that huge explosion, right? The power that's in every atom of life. It was my resistance to that all along. That connection was there. It was my resistance to it that kept me from feeling that that strength, that power, that peace, that love that is in my heart was always there. I had cut off from it.
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. Yeah. And our sponsor as well has always said, through the step work, like, how do we align ourselves, like our actions, with what, quote unquote, hypothetically, our loving and caring higher power would be. And just implementing that into your life is automatically going to make changes. Because, I mean...
Well, so for me, very simply, the way that I know if I'm aligning myself with what everybody says God's will, right? If I'm aligning myself with that, the way I know that in the practical application sense is very simply, am I doing the next right thing?
Yeah.
And I break it all the way down to that because in reality, there is only now, right? There's only the now. And when I'm living in the now, I'm faced with choices. And I can worry about and I can project into the future really well.
Oh, yes.
Put that in writing. You know what I mean? Let's get that
Trust me, that's fucking recorded, buddy.
Yeah, I can definitely worry about these things and I can project and create these scenarios and have his, like you were saying, have his side of the conversation for him and be ready. You know, but all those things are their fears. They are
their projections.
And they're what ifs. And if I put all those down and I live in the now, I'm only really given so many choices, so many options in the moment. And what I found is that, and I almost did it as like an experiment to begin with. Well, maybe let me just try this on for a little while and see what happens. Like try to just live in the now. And, you know, it sounded terrifying at the time, but it was that simple to just start being in the now. Realizing I'm whole in this moment. I am healthy. I am human. I'm okay. Nothing is wrong right here and right now. And, you know, I started practicing that. And what I found is that, you know, everything else starts to work out better and better. If I don't go into a situation, especially one that really can be scary, like this one, for example, like, you know, coming up here to do the podcast, I'm feared up, but I don't let my actions be controlled by that fear. I didn't cancel on you guys, right? I didn't stay in bed with the covers pulled over my head like my brain still tells me to do, right? I just moved through that fear and we'll see what happens. You know, I'll lose my train of thought and I'll screw some shit up. And, you know, it really is okay. Like everything's okay. Even when I'm not doing things right. And what I find is that I'm taking the next right action. I'm doing the next right thing and things work out and things actually multiply in this amazing way when you continue to do the next right thing. So like I could steal from this guy, but I'm not going to, you know, or I could screw these people over and they probably wouldn't notice right now, but I'm not going to, because it really is just down to me and my higher power. I'm just going to do the next right thing. And, you know, there's a practicality to that. And then there's also like this multiplication effect where you just become something more than by carrying out that action, by doing the next right thing. Now, again, practical application. Sometimes there are situations where the next right thing is not clear. So what do you do? Right? I'm going to take this road or I'm going to take that road. One of them is actually going to fuck somebody over, or is going to be uncomfortable for this person or that person, right? These two people are arguing and I need to go with them, one of them somewhere, and this is going to be bad. What do I do? What's the right answer? Well, what do? You pray, you talk to your sponsor and your friends, you weigh out your options, and you follow your heart. And if you do that, that's it. You know, you take the action that's best and you carry on with life. That's never served me wrong. And I don't think that's ever served anybody wrong, because if you're telling the truth, whether somebody wants to hear it or not, whether somebody else reacts negatively to the truth or not, you have nothing to regret. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Absolutely. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Great.
Any final last word? Give me your last words, sir.
Well, he doesn't have his last words yet.
No. Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you're going to be talking a little bit longer.
Oh,
okay. Well, let's hit it. Whatever.
So we're gonna go kind of through some of our normal questions.
We're gonna go Q&A for 500.
And then we'll get into some things I'm a little curious about from what you talked about. One thing I heard you say, and like you don't usually hear people talk about this a lot, and I kind of remember when I was in high school, remembering that moment where I'm just like, I remember it, very clearly. I just drank way too much whiskey. And I was in my parents' basement. I was like, I had a pool stick in my hand. I was just so fucking angry and I was wasted. And I was like, fuck, I have a problem. And like, you were talking about that moment where you understand that like, I'm an addict. And just like you hear how it's like, oh, well, you have to surrender to, to recovery. You have to surrender to the disease. But like, there's like, in turn, before that, you surrender to addiction, being like, well, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
So what's that feeling like for you when you like realize like, I'm an addict and I'm okay with it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to keep going.
Oh, wow.
I think there was definitely a feeling of fuck it in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, there was guilt and shame, but at the same time, so sort of like, a child doesn't really know that they're in a bad situation, right? They just adapt. They just, become whatever the situation is that they're in. in a way I was living like a child, and the way that it brought me almost like a peace to just be like, this is who I am now. This is, you know what I mean? This is what I'm doing. But more overwhelming than anything else was just fuck it. I didn't care. I didn't care about myself mostly. I had zero love and care for myself. I didn't care if I died. I didn't have any answers. I didn't have a way out. And even still today, that's really the most dangerous feeling is fuck it.
Yeah.
Because for as great as I've made my life, and for all the people that I have that are counting on me to show up every day, if I get deep enough into a place of fuck it, all bets are off, fuck everything, fuck this. If I can go deep enough into that feeling, then, all bets are off.
Yeah.
And that's a great point to make is, that's really acceptance though, isn't it? I mean, just accepting.
It's just on the other side of the coin.
Just on the other side. And I feel like it really did make me go off the ledge even more because, I felt like I could vaguely remember I was like, I used to just like take everything on the road with me. I just would leave and drive and, be fucked up the whole time I was driving. I would have, pills and a bag of weed and copious amounts of alcohol. And I would spend my days wherever.
Suitcase full of uppers, downers, laughers, screamers.
Nice.
That's immediately what came to my head. Sorry.
And I vaguely remember waking up one day and I had these weird pictures on my phone. One of them said childcare 666. Like I was in the middle of the night.
That's weird.
Somewhere, and it was on my phone. I had no idea where it came from, but I thought it was funny, or should I say, Donnie Pilferson thought it was funny to take this picture and continue, driving around completely inebriated. And I woke up and I was next to this park, Codoris Park up in Pennsylvania, and I can remember like walking through this park and being completely alone. And realizing that hopelessness of full weight of just crushing addiction.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you don't have
it's like floating anything in the middle of an ocean.
Right. But the ways and means to get more, you know what I mean? The desire to use. And that was it. Like that was my whole life. I didn't define it that way at the time though. I felt like, fuck, I hate being alive. I hate all this bullshit. Everything's bullshit. And, it was like trying to get as high as I could and pass out again. Like that was pretty much it, just to try to reach that plateau of being like just fucked up enough to feel nothing, to reach that complete level of numb. And then to end the day as quickly as possible by, whatever means necessary. Yeah. That was a horrible place to live. I mean, actually, maybe I'm grateful that I can't remember it any more clearly than that. But I remember it feeling at the time unending. It was like this will never end.
Oh God, yeah.
It was just so many days and so many months and so many years where it was just like it just felt like
that just gave me goosebumps.
There was no way out.
Yeah. Okay, so. Well, we're going to go a little lighter now.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then we'll get heavy, then we'll get light, and then we'll end on something a little heavy. So I remember straight edge. I do remember kids who were straight edge.
Oh, yeah.
How would you define straight edge? Because I was not straight edge. I hung out with straight edge people.
Yeah.
And I was like, why don't you get fucked up? I don't understand. Okay. So what is straight edge from the perspective of someone who's straight edge? Because I am only like, you're straight edge because you have X's on your hands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the first thing I was going to say was the X's on your hands.
And like you're wearing this Hot Topic shirt and like, I don't know, you're like punk, I guess.
So I never wore a Hot Topic shirt. Okay. And I definitely was punk. Eating out of garbage cans and going to shows. I was.
Why would you eat out of garbage cans?
Because it was free. Because we were poor,
and it was free.
Yeah, it was free. Yeah, I was industrious, and I was, frugal. So, I think there was definitely a level of desperation to define who I was. And, all of us go through that, especially through, our teenage years. Some all the way until we die. There's this desperate need to define the ego. And that's kind of where, for me, I don't know, it was almost like I knew I should stay away from that. Not because people told me that I should stay away from drugs and drinking, but it was almost like this inherent knowing,
Yeah.
And so I didn't use, and I guess I was never really good at being, just a character or whatever. You have like the skaters and the punks and the jocks and all that stuff. I was never really good at just being my role. I did like having a mohawk. I still love punk rock, but I never really only hung out with the punk rockers because I was a punk rocker. In fact, I didn't really, hang out with anybody. I did go to shows. I did have
Not back then.
some punk rock friends, but in high school, it was really just a matter of, I didn't use, and I was proud of that. And, I guess it was really short-lived. Come to think about it, I've said, like 100 times, haven't I? I'm going to go back and listen to this and realize I have a crazy verbal crutch.
Everybody does.
Yeah. So in high school, it was definitely, I was proud of that. I was proud that I didn't drink when everybody was doing that. And maybe that's a little bit of like the contrarian in me, where everybody's doing that and that's a cool thing to do. So I'm not going to do that.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned that you're a loner. Something I can kind of relate to. And was it difficult for you to create, you were saying you went to like meetings in Montgomery County, you went to meetings in Prince George's County, you went to meetings in Towson. So how difficult, especially going to like this wide area of meetings, how difficult was it to like kind of, build a network, not find your place, but build that initial network? Because like finding your place is like, oh, I feel at home here. But building a network is like, fuck, now I have to talk to these assholes.
Yeah.
So like,
awesome question.
How'd you get past that social anxiety and actually, be like, hey,
if I can really boil it down, I just stood there.
He did.
I just stood there.
You really did.
I didn't talk like at all. And I just fucking stood there. And that was like me getting over the boiling anxiety inside me
just run away.
To run away.
Yeah.
And I just stood there, and thankfully everybody is really accepting. So when I walked up to them and was just staring at them while they had their conversations, I just stood there.
It's really, I'm actually going to co-sign this 100% because we have about the exact same time, of recovery. And I remember him starting to come to like, Catonsville area, and he was just a fucking fly on the wall, and he would have like this half button down shirt but like tattoos showing. So I'm instantly interested, and I'm like, okay, he seems like he's around my age, but he's not saying a fucking word. And he probably for the first 6 months it was like, hi, I'm Martin. That's it. Dead air. After that,
and people really if you give them the opportunity to, will accept you for whoever you are and wherever you're at. And, like I said, I would rather be uncomfortable. I would rather face a fear and fail than not, or really to stay where I'm at. You know what I mean? I was so desperate to not ever get back to that place that I was in. I was willing to do absolutely anything. And they talked about
talking to assholes.
Yeah. And they talked early on about like, especially if something makes you uncomfortable, if you're asked to do it, you should do it. And then building a network, my first sponsor, and I guess that's really where I started before like trying to make friends. I started with getting a sponsor, and I could go into that. I picked the guy who sounded drunk, and every time I listened to him, I would kind of feel fucked up. They talk about post-acute withdrawal, and so listening to him would make me feel fucked up. So I'm like, they say go after what you want. I was like, I want that guy to be my sponsor. So I went through a couple different sponsors, but that was sort of like I latched on to him, and he made it okay to like talked to some people, and I sort of like listened to the lingo, and then I made the effort. Friendships, what I've learned is like, I never knew what a friend was. I never really knew what it meant before I got into the rooms. And it means, putting in effort, to reach out to people and to not be closed off and to, share my pain. And I've found time and time again where I got to be the first one to really open up and be honest about, how fucking worthless and scared I can be, for somebody else to then open up and realize like all these ways that we connect and all these things that we share, and I'd much rather have a deep level conversation and be fucking real than just talk about the weather.
Yeah.
And we're in such an inviting environment in recovery where, where else can you show up and say like, I literally have an axe in my trunk right now because I'm waiting to kill this guy, and a room full of people laugh.
Yeah.
Because they know where you're at, and it's okay.
Like, we're gonna have to get that axe.
Oh, Joey.
We're gonna have to get that axe from Joey.
Yeah.
We'll let him sit for a minute though.
Yeah.
I want to chime in real quick on that. Mine sort of came out of necessity, because the first couple years of recovery, I was very much a local guy. Like I stuck to Howard County area, Catonsville area, so I didn't branch out too much. And then a recovery relationship went south. I was no longer welcome in this ex-female's eyes, and it became uncomfortable for me in my little fishbowl. So I had to literally jump out of my tank and go. I knew like I still needed to pursue recovery, but I was like, it's not comfortable right here, right now. So I needed to go find it. And so that's when I started branching. I started going out to Frederick. I went out to some Laurel meetings, definitely went up to like Towson, Pikesville, Roland Park, Baltimore area. And I really started exploring. And, once I like just sat in those meetings, and I would go to like the same meeting out of area regularly. So they would start to recognize my face. I'd start to recognize their face. I would hear some of their stories. I would relate to somebody. And somebody would say something in a meeting, and I'd be like, hey, I feel that too. We should be friends. And that I like through that, I've actually found some of my absolute best friends. And like that really goes to show that like even like the worst shitty things in my life, as long as I, like Martin said, continue to do the next right thing and pursue my recovery, will lead me to now one of my absolute most important friendships of my life. And all of that came from feeling uncomfortable where I was and doing something about it.
You also made me think about too that, so many people that I was willing to be open with and talk to, some of them have become the most important people in my life. And for a while, it was just being polite and giving them a hug and not knowing where it would go.
Yeah.
The other thing that you made me think about too was that I moved into a recovery house, which for me, the guys would they would come up to the door and they would knock on the door and say, hey, we haven't seen you around in 3 days. Are you okay? And that like gave me a whole nother level of self-awareness. Like, oh God, I do exist. And, I am going to have hard days. And that environment of recovery made a huge impact on my life. Being at the Donnelly house where we were all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We were all almost like an instant network because we were in the same house.
Yeah.
That made a huge, huge difference.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Well, seems like we're about out of time.
We're about out of time?
We are about out of time.
Any further statements, questions? No? Nothing? All right. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that was great.
All right. Well, we'd like to thank our guest, Martin, again for joining us. You did a great job. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you asking.
Here at Podcast Recovery, we are aiming to expand the scope of support for recovering addicts. Accessibility and convenience of helpful services is paramount to combating addiction. We work to bring the message of recovery to every addict, wherever and whenever it is needed. We believe that a powerful voice of recovery should be obtainable, practical, and at the touch of a button. Every addict deserves to hear a message of hope, and Podcast Recovery is here to provide it. And we're here to provide it on Twitter, on Facebook. We have a website, brand new website, podcastrecovery.com. Go check it out. You can listen to our first episode with Emily C. And we'll have...
And lots of other episodes.
Lots of other episodes.
Please, Paul P.
Yes, Paul P. Allie.
Dave, yourself.
Myself, yes.
Nathan.
Yes, we have so many fantastic episodes.
And also please check out YouTube and SoundCloud. And you can find our podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher,
Castbox. Yep, we are all over everywhere.
Please rate, review.
That's, I think, all we got.
And subscribe.
Anything? Last words, Martin?
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
We try.
Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe, stay clean.